Hey guys, what's up? It's Murphy from War Curse.
This is Brittany Slaves from Unleash the Archers.
Hey, this is Dale from Endemise.
This is Vicky Sarakis from The Agonist.
This is Trevor from Obituary, and you're listening to The Great Metal Debate.
Great Metal Debate fans, this is Brian. I'm sitting here in Nashville at the Exit Inn with Matt from Gruesome. Matt, welcome to the Great Metal Debate.
Awesome, thank you for having me. I love metal and I love debating.
Well, then you are in the right spot, sir. Yeah. Why don't you just introduce yourself and just kind of tell quickly the members of the band and then give us a short history of the band.
My name is Matt Harvey. I'm the guitarist, or one of the guitarists and a vocalist in Gruesome, along with Daniel Gonzalez, who's sort of the featured lead guitar player, Gus Rios on drums, and the lovely and talented Miss Robin Mason on bass. I also play in a few other bands. I've played in Exhumed for years and years since I was in high school, doing guitar and vocals there.
Sweet.
I have another project that's like a traditional metal band called Pounder that is working on our first album right now.
Nice.
And the other members of the band also have quite a rich legacy. Dan plays for Possessed, Gus was in Malevolent Creation and many other Florida death metal bands. Robinson Castrator, and she also plays in a thrash metal cover band called Thrash Attack in Tampa.
Nice.
So we all have sort of been around the block for a while, and we're all friends before the band started. And
a cacophony of metal talent and lineage, man. I like that. That's cool. Now, I ask everybody that I interview this because I always like to hear it. You know, you're in high school, middle school, you're listening to a band or a video or a particular song, a person, and you think, holy shit, this I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life. What was that moment? Is there a moment for you?
Absolutely. I mean, I think for me, it was a very distinct, it was like a light switch turned on, and I think that I'm an atheist and I despise religion personally, but I can understand that moment of the light bulb turning on, and you, as Obi-Wan Kenobi says, you're taking your first step into a larger world.
Right.
And when it was just before Christmas in 1987, and I had just turned, I guess, 12? Maybe I was still 11, I'm not sure.
Right.
I was 11 or 12, anyway. And I remember they had the old, you'll remember this, the 12 tapes for a penny record club thing. And so, I thought it was a lot faster to get 12 tapes for a penny than to use my allowance for 12 weeks or whatever. So I got all these tapes, and I was kind of listening through to Wasp and Dio and Maiden, Twisted Sister, Quiet Riot, White Snake, and finally at the very end, the last two cassettes I had were Master of Puppets and Peace Sells But Who's Mine.
Oh my god.
And I didn't know that much about them. I just knew that they were like a little bit more edgy or whatever.
Right.
So I put on the Master of Puppets tape, and I remember having a little Walkman and shit. And it was just sitting in my grandparents' house, and I wanted to go to bed, and I'm just up, and I heard Battery for the first time. And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I mean, I stopped the tape after one song because I was just like, dude, what the fuck did I just hear? And as soon as
that's a religious experience in and of itself.
Right. I mean, that album is such a masterpiece, and to encounter it, within the first, maybe 20 metal albums I'd ever heard. And it was so different than Maiden and Ozzy and Priest and Dio and stuff at the time. Like, it really was a whole separate animal. And I was just hooked. Like, instantly, that was what I was obsessed with. I think the rest of the tapes just sat there for a week, and I just listened to Master of Puppets. And then finally I was like, okay, I think I got the gist of this. Now I'm going to listen to this Megadeth tape. And I was like, oh, this is really good, too.
Sure.
But that was, as soon as I heard that fast beat, I was like, that's what I want. Like this, and that real chunky palm muted guitar. That was the moment right there.
Yeah. Most people who have that kind of epiphany identify with the just aggression and the rawness of it. Is that what attracted you to it?
Absolutely, because and especially the cool thing for me was that the more I listened to it and the more I learned about it, the more I liked it. Whereas some of the other stuff, maybe not so much. Like, I still love that self-titled White Snake record, and the guitar playing is amazing and the production's great. But when I was a kid, I wasn't really comfortable with that sort of like overt male sexuality and like the Robert Plant. I was like, I don't want to hear about this dude getting chicks. Like, I'm 11, I can't get any chicks.
Exactly.
I got pimples and I read comic books. I don't know anything about this world. But I was angry.
Freaking awesome statement right there, man.
I was angry, and I could relate to what Metallica was talking about there. It's like, H.P. Lovecraft, like, because I was into comic books and sci-fi and horror and movies and tabletop role-playing games, and I was like, I can relate to this Cthulhu stuff. I can relate to these songs that are about the horrors of war or whatever, and I was like, I found the subject matter to be much more interesting than like, I got a cool car, let's go get some pussy, it's Friday, let's get fucked up. And like I said, so it was just, and then when I saw the photo of them, they didn't have, glittery jackets or huge hair, or nobody had done their makeup. They were just 4 dudes. Right. And I'm from San Jose, which is, 35 miles from San Francisco and Oakland, and where all that scene was happening. Yeah. And so it was extremely relatable. To me, it was the first time I thought, hey, maybe I could be in a band. Because when I looked at, Vivian Campbell or Jakey Lee or these guys, I was like, there are some other animal. Like, I don't know what they are, but it's not me.
Hair band,
Right. And I like all those records still, but it wasn't relatable.
Right. Did you perchance play Dungeons and Dragons at some point in your life?
Absolutely. I play D&D now.
Oh, my partner and I have played for 40 years, man.
Awesome.
That's kind of how we started together. Yeah. So
I just recently started playing again a few months ago with a couple guys from my work. And we did a campaign, like it was an elemental type campaign, which was kind of neat. It was neat seeing how the dynamics. We have a pretty good DM, my buddy Terry, and he was really adept at sort of taking the dynamics and tweaking them enough that each encounter was sort of interesting. Like, how does this work underwater? Like, what?
Nice.
And so that was really fun.
Well, that's cool.
And now I'm GMing a game that's we're using the old TSR Marvel Superheroes.
Oh, nice.
System.
Yeah.
I like it because it's real simple and flexible, and it keeps it moving quickly. Anyway,
my partner in the podcast, he's a pretty good DM, but don't tell him that because he's a dick. You're a dick. I just want you to know that. So let me ask some obligatory questions.
Obligatory.
You're 11 days. Is it how's the tour going, if you will?
Oh, the tour's awesome. Exhumed had toured with Obituary previously, and
so you've played with these guys before, some form.
So we already, I knew them, and everyone else in the band being from Florida, they all know these guys. So it's super laid back, super easygoing. They've been very kind to have us on the bus with them. And to save time and money and space and everything else, we're using their backline. So, I can't say enough nice things about the guys.
And it's like, 11 days? Is that right? Pretty intense 11 days, though, man. You're like, here, boom.
No, it's just a normal tour.
What was it? What is it? The redneck?
Redneck run.
Nice, yeah.
It's the one guy from California. I'm like, I don't know, man. They got like a tractor on the T-shirt. I don't know.
So, a big part of the podcast is the actual debate. I love the, it's interesting you're an atheist. I play in the church band and stuff like that. We could have that debate. I love that too. But so, like, everything I play sounds like, the praise and worship sounds like Angus on the guitar all the time. So,
hey, man, that's where you get good chops, man.
Oh, I know,
fucking gospel kids.
Nobody makes it talk like that. Oh, yeah.
Chops, man.
So, genre. There are 100 million genres right now. Is that important to you? Do you like? Are you opposed to labeling yourself? Do you? You obviously have a certain,
not at all,
certain position, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But
I think to me, like, as a kid growing up, I was a big comic book collector, and I was also a big reader.
Right.
And one of the things that you learn at comic book stores and at libraries is classifying and organizing things.
Sure, yeah.
Like, that's part of the fun of collecting comics, is like, you move and you alphabetize all your comics again, and you go through and like, I forgot I had this or whatever. So to me, it was very important. A combination of that and growing up in the Bay Area, where if you're from Oakland, San Francisco, San Jose, you sort of have an innate distaste for Los Angeles.
Oh, really?
And anything Los Angeles related, because the LA scene was Poison and Rat
hair bands
and all that stuff. I liked all those bands when I was like 11, and I liked them as an adult, but as a teenager I was like, fuck them.
Right, yeah.
And I loved the oppositional nature of it, that it was like, there's a counterbalance. On one hand you have Rat, and then on the other hand you have Exodus.
Right.
And there's a clear demarcation. Yes, they're both playing rock music with loud guitars and stuff, but one is a street level sort of angry, visceral kind of thing, and then the other is sort of a glitz and glamour, like let's get chicks kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
And so to me, I really like that categorization. And as a young metal guy, I was always, like most kids, I wanted to hear something faster. I wanted to hear something heavier. Like, what's faster than Metallica? Slayer.
Right.
What's faster than Slayer? Oh, Pleasure to Kill. What's faster than that? Cryptic Slaughter. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
And so, again, it became... Once I got a little bit older and I'd been, started going to shows and stuff, and you could see how many people, I remember seeing Metallica in '89, and I was like, this is like a stadium full of people. Like, I don't relate to these people. They got, Def Leppard shirts on and shit. They're just, regular people. It doesn't mean that Metallica's music wasn't awesome, but the crowd, I was like, I want my own thing.
Yeah.
And so that drove me further underground, and what I liked about getting into death metal, it was that, again, it was oppositional to thrash, because thrash had gotten so popular, and was sort of complacent, and it had lost, a lot of the bands were losing their edge. My favorite example is the first Exodus album. It's about, kicking in your face and raping and murdering your wife. And then by the time Impact is Imminent came out, which is album 4, album 4, and there's an anti-drunk driving song. And that to me is the most emblematic example of why thrash went away, is because it became so potentially successful that so many bands kind of declawed themselves, because they're like, well, hey, Metallica's fucking making zillions, Slayer's making a lot of money, why can't we do this? What's missing? And anyway, so to me, again, it was well, now I'm not into thrash. When you're 15, whatever you liked when you were 14 sucks. So when I was 15, I was like, I'm into death metal. I'm into Obituary and Napalm Death and Terrorizer and these bands. Not Metallica, not Slayer, not Megadeth. I'm into this. And, again, when death metal sort of got bigger and became a bit complacent, and then black metal came out, and it was more edgy and dangerous, and so on and so forth. That's how trends work. I mean,
it really is. An interesting comparison. I just interviewed Trevor of Obituary, and I asked him the same genre question. You two guys are on the same tour. You kind of like the same music, and I said, so are you interested in that? He's like, we don't give a shit.
No,
and whereas you are a little more concerned with it, but yet you have the same brotherhood. You meet somewhere in the middle, and it's the metal that unites us.
Absolutely, and I mean, it's always interesting getting different people's takes on it. And with Trevor, he's a few years older than me, and obviously Executioner was, doing demos in 85?
84 was their first year.
84. Right. So, that's the beginning of death metal. So I think when it's really interesting to me, because I meet a lot of guys that are a bit older than me, like Matt and Scott from Repulsion and the Obituary guys and so on and so forth.
Right.
And they came from a background of hard rock, new wave of British heavy metal.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff, and then immediately took it in this different direction. Whereas for me, it all seemed, at least the way in hindsight, it was very systematic. First there was radio rock, then there was Sunset Strip metal, then there was Iron Maiden, then there was whatever traditional metal, then there was thrash metal, then there was death metal and grindcore, and then I stopped.
And it's sort of cyclical. It comes back around. It's all different.
Absolutely.
Now, since we're talking about genres and very specific things, let's talk about Gruesome and sort of what you guys do, how you define yourself. You have a very, I don't want to say purpose, but you have a certain aim.
Absolutely. It's a trippy situation, because Gruesome, just in case someone's not familiar with us, to get it out of the way, we are we're a tribute band, basically. We're a death homage band, and it's something that you don't really see that much in popular music.
Right.
It's something that you see more in film, where say the Mel Brooks movie High Anxiety.
Yeah.
He directly takes these the cinematography and all these sort of directorial cues from Hitchcock, and then employs them to make a comedy. But it's actually a pretty amazing movie, because Hitchcock is such a highly regarded director. And here you have the guy who does Blazing Saddles cribbing his shots and taking,
absolutely, yeah,
like really taking his vocabulary and speaking with it, which I think is really impressive.
Yeah.
Quentin Tarantino is a big homage guy. Whatever. The latest Star Wars movie is absolutely the same thing that we're doing with music, where it feels, or what we hope is that our record feels like a Death album, and that we have specific parts that are callbacks to Death riffs, and part of the fun is, hopefully, the idea. Yeah. Part of the fun is that as a Death fan, listen to a Death tribute band, you're like, oh shit, that's kind of like that part from song X, and that's kind of like that part from song Y. Like, oh, cool, and you recognize it, and we're kind of like, it's a wink.
I've heard you talk about using almost like cinematic effects and like ways, like you play a Death riff backwards or something to that effect, or it's a different speed, a different version.
Right.
I mean, talk a little about that.
It's weird because I think the normal assumption is that you start a band and you're expressing yourself. Like, people have this idea. I think that's why they get so mad about the gory lyrics and death metal or whatever. Sure. Versus, nobody thinks that Wes Craven is out there killing people. Yeah. But people thought that Chris Barnes was killing people.
Eating babies and sacrificing to Satan. Yeah, that's hilarious.
So the assumption is that if you're writing a song, you're speaking from direct experience, or you're really expressing your innermost feelings. Right. And this is really not about that. This is more just about expressing the admiration for the Death records that we love. And it's I mean, I call it it's like method acting, where a guy like Daniel Day-Lewis or whatever, if he has to play a boxer, like he goes and trains and becomes like a really fucking good boxer. Yeah. And so he's not a guy playing a boxer, he is a boxer being filmed. Sure. Yeah. And so what we're trying to do is get inside Chuck's head or his shoes or whatever you want to call it, and create songs that he would have created. Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine what music would be like, death metal would be like today if Chuck had kept continuing to learn and play?
Right, absolutely.
And hopefully, through you, they're able to do that. I mean, we kind of see a version of that, I think.
Well, when we first started doing this, we didn't really think ahead. I didn't really think that much of it. I thought it was kind of like like a novelty record or whatever. Sure, yeah. But I really underestimated the passion that Death fans have to hear more of this stuff, and they've been very kind to us because we've kind of tried to pick up the torch, and it's a big set of shoes to step into.
Sure, yeah.
And they've been very kind to us and very supportive, and I underestimated that people would want someone to do this, and clearly it seems like they do, and I'm very fortunate that people have been accepting of what we've had to offer.
Well, I mean, he is one of the maybe the most influential musician for death metal, that there is. I mean, definitely top 5,
Absolutely.
Now, I heard you talk about in another interview, and I wanted to ask you about this. The writing process. No, it's the writing process. You do your homage and that sort of thing, but you also talked about having to, I don't know whether you call it grow as an artist, but you originally kind of just sound just like Death, but you want to increase the technicality and yet stay true to the original intent?
Well, what I want to do is, I mean, now that we kind of have realized that the band has some traction and people are interested in what we're doing and there's going to be more records and so on and so forth, is that we want to follow the progression that Death took throughout their discography, which is fun for me because, it's a bit of a challenge to kind of, if people are familiar with Exhumed, it's not much of a stretch for them to think that I'm really into Scream Bloody Gore. Like, it seems natural. But, as we move forward, I think it's a challenge for me to sort of break out of my little death metal thing to do something that will be more like Symbolic or Human or those later records, because it's not necessarily what comes naturally to me.
Sure.
And but it is fun to play, and it's neat. I mean, when I was playing with Death All, I remember we were playing The Philosopher and Trapped in a Corner and some of these songs. Yeah. And people came up to me like, "Man, I never knew you were that good of a guitar player." I was like, I mean, it's not any more difficult than Exhumed. It's just clearer and it's played in a higher pitch.
Exactly.
And so it's like, it's my personal challenge to myself to like, all right, I feel like we've done an okay job so far, and I want to move forward and challenge myself to also do what Chuck did, and he challenged himself with every record, which definitely. I admire, you know.
Well, let's talk about it. I mean, from Savage Land, which came out in 2015, right. to Fragments, now it's 2017.
Right.
What, you know, what would you consider yourself progressing in just the musicality of it? That's not the right word. The musicianship of
sure.
it?
Definitely. I mean, I think we did the first record, and like I said, we didn't really have a plan, so we went and did Dimensions of Horror because we're like, oh, fuck, well, if we're going to do this, we skipped the first record. So we were like, we got to squeeze this one in as quick as we can, and so that's sort of our Scream Bloody Gore thing.
Yeah.
Later this year, we'll be recording a new album that will be sort of our take on spiritual healing. And, I mean, for me, like...
Will you follow that pattern on that?
That's what we're doing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's going to go chronologically. But for me, what I do for fun is, you know, some people... I like sports and stuff, but I would rather just sit around and, like, write music.
Yeah.
So I'm always writing songs, and, you know, I have... The new album is already... It's been written for a few months. Mm-hmm. And here and there, I'll just write a song.
So it's done?
Well, compositionally, we haven't recorded it,
gotcha.
But from the composition standpoint, and you know, I'll just come up with something and I'll just put it away for later. Like, so we already have like a couple songs that are more like human, a couple songs that maybe will be more like individual, or so on and so forth, that we will return to. And Gus, the way Fragments came about, again, we're sort of skipping around to the discovery. Gus is really good friends with Sean. I mean, I'm friends with Sean, but they're like super tight. And, you know, he hit him up. I mean, Gus is sort of, he's like our Lars Ulrich. Like, he's the guy, he's got the gift of gab.
Sure.
He'll sell you on the band. I'll be like, well, I don't know, maybe it's not that good. Like, I don't know if you're going to like it. Gus is like, it's great.
Oh, it's good.
And so he sold Sean on playing a track with us.
Yeah.
And so I had this song written that was sort of more like human. And, you know, to me, it's kind of a big deal to have the guy that played playing one of our songs.
Yeah.
And, you know, and Terry plays Pull the Plug with us on this tour, and that's a huge deal to me. It's like, you know, these are guys when I was a kid, and like, Terry Butler, oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. Now, so that writing process, I mean, you're sort of the West Coast guy versus the East Coast guy. You're the Tupac, if you will, of the death metal genre.
Thug Immortal,
So how does that writing process work? Is it piecemeal? You send them this, they send you back? And
well, the beauty of this band that has just allowed us to move quickly and continue releasing stuff and continue writing stuff is that both Dan and Gus are professional engineers.
Right.
I mean, that's not the whole of what they do for a living, but they're both, you know, professional level engineers.
Yeah, that's a huge benefit.
If you needed one of them to like record an album for you, it would sound great.
Yeah.
And so with that, I'm able to compose demos of songs, send them to those guys.
Right.
And then they, you know, basically, they bring it to life. I send them the marionette, and then they come back with Pinocchio. He's walking, he's talking, he's doing
nice.
Everything. And so the composition process just goes so quickly. With Exhumed, we still like go in a rehearsal room like twice a week and be like, this riff goes like this, play it 10 times, whatever. Right. And it's so much more smooth with Gruesome, to be honest. So that has just been a boon to the band. And you know, I'm always doing different stuff, and I'm always kind of like, wherever the momentum is gathering, that's where I'll put my attention. That's my inclination.
Gotcha.
And with these guys, it never stops because, like I said, I give them, you know, grapes, and then they bring me wine, and it's great.
Right, that's awesome. So now I think you've kind of answered this already, but what's next for Gruesome?
Well, we're doing this tour, and then we are going to be back in the studio before too long. We're continuing to work with Jared Pritchard, who did the mixing on Savage Land, and then did the engineering and mixing on Dimensions of Horror. We just did the new Exhumed record with him as well, and he's going to be recording everything in Orlando. We've been sort of, you know, trying to do as much research, as we can about how spiritual healing was recorded, from the amps used to the mics and so on and so forth. Because, I mean, it is a pretty thorough process with us. We don't just be like, oh, it sounds like that, good enough. Like, we think about the guitar tone, we think about the drum tones and the way things are recorded. There's 3 rhythm guitar tracks.
You eventually going to get to tape and do it that way?
Well, it's too expensive.
That hurts you.
I would love to do tape, but it's just too expensive.
Right.
But yeah, Leprosy has 3 rhythm guitar tracks. Spiritual Healing has 4. So we're speaking with everybody from James Murphy to the Obituary's front of house guy, worked at Morristown for years.
Yeah.
Dan was picking his brain last night, and like I said, the fact that Gus and Dan are engineers, they have that scrutiny and that attention to detail that gets it to the same sort of sonic place that Death was at. Because you can write a riff, but then if you use a different amp, it doesn't sound anything like
exactly. Yeah. It's very, very technical and precise.
And of course, we're using Ed Repka for the artwork once again.
Great stuff.
That's just, to me, like, the first 3 Death albums are defined by the imagery. It's so important. Yeah. And Ed Repka's been great. I've never met the guy, never even spoken to him, but he's hit it out of the park for us twice in a row, so I just couldn't be happy.
Savage Land was awesome. I love that cover.
Exactly what I was thinking.
That's great. So, where can fans get music and merchandise for Gruesome?
Well, we have merchandise available via JSR on their website, and of course via Relapse, our label. This is the part of the interviews I'm really bad at.
Oh, that's okay. We'll look it up and put it up there for you, so you're covered.
Yeah, but I know we work with JSR. We have tons of stuff to Relapse.
Sure.
And it's
you can get it off the website too. Like the Facebook page or anything. I've seen that.
Probably.
Yeah, you can definitely. I saw that. So, Matt from Gruesome, thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you.
There are only fragments.